Good morning. Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. I am glad that we have Jack Kashite here because he looks festive. You can tell it's the holidays with him. I'm in my usual dark state. But Jack, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, feeling a little betwixt and between and overwhelmed and confused, but it's that time of year, I suppose, because I'm not, skiing in Vail with the family as Muffy always says. Yeah, I just choose to have fun with it. It's a poverty mentality consciousness I was raised with. Like, what are you going to do? The potatoes didn't grow. It's cold outside. All we have is gruel, but hey, we're alive. Let's have fun. It's kind of an Irish thing for a New York Jewish man.
Oh, all right.
Since you asked, how about you, sir? You have a different culture. You came from a different place.
Yeah. Uh, oh, I'm not going to go down that dark hole this morning.
Okay, well, we'll find some others.
Okay.
We'll find some other holes for you there, buddy.
We have some early morning viewers, so let's see who it is. Oh, nobody's chatted yet. So chat us up so we know who's watching. We'll give you a good morning welcome, a Christmas Eve welcome. And we'll probably, I don't know, what do you think? Today, New Year's Eve, good day to take calls from people?
Sure, it's always a good day to take calls from people. And of course, we can wind them up with talking about stuff we want to talk about. I've got a few items to discuss at some point. Yeah, go ahead.
You specifically requested that it be a year in review because you do have a list of things that you want to go through. So
Yep. And in our usual our picaresque wanderings, who knows where we'll go next? It certainly won't be linear or coherent, but it will be fun. And speaking of which, here's the thing, my friend. I want to start out the end of the year with a high compliment to you. You are a freaking artist. You are a freaking artist, and there aren't many of us. Especially, you and I met each other through the elk activism, which is to say, I saw your documentary film, which I plug every time I see your face, The Shame of Point Reyes, and it's the only feature-length film about the issues at Point Reyes Seashore, which, as I always say, go beyond the seashore. It's not just about that lovely little place near us in the Bay Area, but it's about cattle and wild animals and corruption and how governments get corrupted, blah, 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 blah. So that's all in that film. But I just saw something you did, and I kind of know how you're going to react, but it'll be fun to watch. So you did something, I will call it Pink Floyd's The Fence instead of Pink Floyd The Wall. And of course, Leah, God bless her, sent me a link to it. And you'll be like, well, why didn't you see it? I send you everything, Jack. Well, you can do that rant. Welcome to the world of marketing and promotion, getting your stuff out there, which is completely separate from creation. But anyway, just the first 5 minutes of a film, maybe you'll put a link up for it. I wish you would during our discussion here while I'm going on, but
I can do that.
It's just really fine filmmaking. And I'm a critic of filmmaking, which means I'm not a filmmaker myself. That's hard. I can do some simple stuff, but when you watch someone who's, well, like you, I'm just going to gush a bit if you can handle it. Watch, audience, watch Skyler squirm in the face of an avalanche of compliments. So
I'm getting better.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's kind of part of enjoying life, man, is when people give you some love, is like, okay, thank you, as opposed to like, you don't know how hard it is. You don't know. Why don't you send me some more money so I can do some films? And, the stuff we all do as artists. But, I mean, you were going out to the seashore a ton, and you went out some rainy night, apparently. What do I know? We never spoke about this. I'm just gushing about your film, like one of the Sweater Boys film critics from PBS 1,000 years ago. So you just notice things, like, oh, look at the light through raindrops on my window. And as an artist to film that, like, oh, that's cool. And then, of course, the next step is you put that into your film in a creative way. And then, of course, you were out there doing, the Lord's work, which is documenting baby cows in calf hutches, those little white boxes that people see but don't see at the seashore. And you just did something amazing with it. I mean, it's easy enough to, well, it's not even easy enough, but it's one thing to go out there and show it and say, look, this is terrible. but you did it in an unexpected musical way. I, I might gush so much that people say, "Well, it's not that good, Jack." Well, no, it is pretty freaking good because I've never seen anything at Point Reyes Seashore done that artistically. There's
Let
other
me
good films. Go ahead,
let me say good morning to Nick Carter
please.
or Nick Cedar. Sorry about that, just because he acknowledged us. Uh, that was a dark time, and I accumulated a lot of footage over several years, and I was actually spending a lot of time in Point Reyes.
I'm sorry. I don't know whether it's me, but your audio is breaking up a little bit.
I hope it's you.
Okay, now, now it sounds fine. Maybe you're just close to the microphone. I don't know. Anyway, I'm
I,
sorry. It was a dark time, and you were spending a lot of time in Point out at the seashore.
yeah, and it was pretty lonely. I mean, I was out there alone, and I'd be out there from before the sun rose until after the sun went down. And being as how I've experienced how violent those people are, it's a fragile place. I mean, you feel vulnerable, and you mix that with just looking at these cows staring off into nothingness because their lives are such shit. And it's cold. I mean, it gets really cold out there. And then you got these babies in the middle of all that terrible cold weather. And one night, there's actually an interesting story for the calf hutch one. Um, it was just pitch black. You know, there's no light out there. And I was trying to walk through the field behind the Mendoza Ranch with these night vision binoculars that could record what's happening to the babies in the middle of the night. And that was quite an experience, just trying not to fall down, walking in truly pitch black night, not knowing what's out there or when I'm going to be shot or anything. God knows we don't have wolves or anything like that here. Not that they would probably harass me, but it was so cold. And then sure enough, it starts raining. And I finally make it to the fence and film through the fence. And there they are, just standing, staring. You know, it's not like they're in a cozy little lovely sleep mode. They're just like 24/7. Whenever you put the camera on them, they're like, what in the hell is happening to me?
To frame this up, by the way, hey Derek, thanks for coming along, my friend. And hey, Nick Cedar, I know who you are. I just is anyway. Thanks, guys. So for context, what you're describing, Skyler, is out at Point Reyes, which is the best of the best, small, organic, local, grass-fed beef dairies, blah 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 blah, regenerative. Throw all the nice words, humane, but they take the baby cows are taken away from their mommies so we humans can take all the milk. And the boys probably have it worse. If they're veal, they get stuck in a veal crate. If they're or they're just sent right off to slaughter because there's no use for them in the dairy industry. They're not worth much financially, that is. And well, I actually don't know enough about whether they're girls or boys, but regardless, the babies are taken away from the moms. And out at Point Reyes, there's not veal crates, but there's these calf hutches where they're just isolated. They're near some other animals, but there's no touching. They're taken from their mothers. There it is, Point Reyes the fence. And you just do something artful with something, a horrific topic, so that people might even look at it and consider what's going on. And it's done subtly. You just see them and you play some classic music you and I grew up with. And that music is stuck in my head again now. It's just perfectly used. And again, I will gush so much that people say, well, it's not that great, Jack. It's pretty amazing what you created there. And that one shot of, it's out of focus, that one cow that is like just kind of an apparition, spooky looking,
Mm-hmm.
and you use it repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just brilliant. It's like, wow, the message you deliver, and then you create haunting imagery that stands out. Well, you're smiling. You're not used to this, are you, buddy?
I don't know I don't know what to do, but I'm too tired to argue with you.
Good. I mean, again, I know
let me compliment Pink Floyd, because that album, God damn, that album is something else. And especially the selections that I used, and it's a journey. That album is an actual journey if you listen to both CDs. And I don't know if you noticed the detail, but I started from one end of Point Reyes and worked my way to the other end of Point Reyes sequentially. in that film as the album moves forward.
Well, no, I didn't notice that because I've only seen it 3 times and downloaded it illegally without telling you. But I'm telling you that now, a confession, because I just you have footage in there that nobody else. People say, "Oh, it's a wasteland out there, and you got to see the land beaten down by the cows," which is what cows do everywhere. And you have you used it's so well used a tracking shot. You just stuck the you drove out there at the right time of year, put your camera out the window, and just showed miles. You're tracking miles of just barren desert dirt, and these are the good organic ranches that keep the fires down by turning grasslands into dirt. It's like saying we're gonna put concrete down over the hills, and now they won't burn. We're stewards of the land. It just shows it rather than me going on and on here as I tend to do.
Good morning, Derek. Good morning, Derek. Good morning, Mark Foster, who is greeting us from Berkeley, and cool. Good morning, Connie Thorman.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, Connie. Hey, by the way, Connie and Derek, save the date February 23rd. That might be the date of our elk fence down celebration. I moved the date from January 11th because we outgrew our venue. There's enough interest in what's going on at Point Reyes and the recent success, which Skyler and I are going to debate soon, whether it's a win or not. To February, and I'm looking at the 23rd, and I'll probably be making the final booking on that after this holiday weekend.
Leah wrote to me and said she just found that film, and I said, and actually when she wrote to me, I was like, you know what, I will put it up. So it's actually I think front and center on my page.
On my do you call it Point Reyes the Fence?
Yeah, I created that title that you're looking at right there.
Okay, great. Yeah, and it's funny. I'm realizing, we're old enough now. There are some people that don't know Pink Floyd's The Wall and don't know, Tommy the Rock Opera, from The Who and stuff. The classic stuff that it's amazing music. I think it's timeless. Like the Beatles. Like, oh yeah, I heard about the Beatles. Isn't that Julian Lennon's father or something?
Goddamn
kids, they don't know nothing.
No, you see, your version of that story is actually a positive one. No one knows who Julian Lennon is either.
Yep.
So at the risk of moving on from you praising me,
fine, I'll keep going, man. Oh, so anyway, just let me close with, so folks, it's I don't know, what is it, a 12-minute film, Point Reyes the Fence. It's on Skyler's Watching Humans YouTube station, where you can find these podcasts as well as on my treespiritproject.com/podcast page. We both link them. He also put the link into this chat. If you're watching this, I assume in a recording, people can access that link after the fact. And even if you just watch the first 5 minutes, in fact, I wanted to say to you, Skyler, we'll talk about this later, but just the first 5 minutes and I think 33 seconds is standalone. You can do a shorter piece of it to get people to watch the whole thing, which is fit for a film festival where people sit in the theater and really take in the imagery. Oh, you got it on the screen there. Are you trying to play a little bit?
I'm experimenting. I don't know how to do this stuff, but
you got it. No, there it is. There's movement of that's how the thing opens, and showing your mug there in the car in the situation. And then out there in the wilderness, there are these little cow babies stuck in these plastic boxes all by their lonesome. It's just, people don't make a connection between today and having cream with their coffee at Christmas or New Year's.
The funny thing is driving past those fences. Oh, and then you see how the cattle are huddled together, like the adults, they're all together there. I mean, they're sentient beings. They're comforting each other. And it really struck me that here are all these mothers without their babies, and they're gathering together. And yet the newborn babies don't even have that.
Meaning specifically, the newborn babies are prevented from huddling together by the treatment by humans. There's that shot. Look at that. It's just like, I mean, a lot of photographers see that, but you take it and then you put it into your video, which is, it's a couple more steps of creativity. You do it organically, natively, automatically. But on the other hand, there's another shot. There's an aerial shot, a drone shot, kind of toward the end of the first saga there, where you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of one of the crescendos in the film, in the short film. The whole thing is just 12 minutes long, but the calf looks up and sees the drone shot, how you got
Oh,
that,
oh
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you just, again, I just want to gush a little bit because I don't often see filmmaking where I go, wow, that's so well done, where you use the musical note, the calf looks up and makes eye contact with us, the audience, and then you overlay a slow dissolve to the next scene. And then I've noticed that you sped up and reversed that cow going backwards back into his calf hutch, into his miserable little life there.
Hmm.
It's a detail and it's so well done.
Well, thank
Suck
you,
on
Jack.
it, Skyler. Suck on it. Compliments. You don't know what to do with it.
Well, when that shot of the windshield that you're talking about is just truly me filming and looking at, like, I do not want to go out there because I was supposed to get out and film. I'm like, it is freaking miserable out. And then I thought, wait a minute. So here I am talking about the misery of these calves, and I won't get out in it for a few minutes. And, and they
Yeah.
live it. They live it nonstop.
Well, again, man, I hope to see. I mean, it's so easy to say this stuff, and it's a whole nother production. But getting this stuff into a festival, and you should be up on stage talking about the creation of it. And I mean, it's what filmmakers can do. You make something, put it out there in the world, and people want to, like, oh my god, they want to talk about it and have you talk about it, and then you spread the. And of course, the whole point of this is to have these beautiful animals here that you're showing stuck in these isolation pens, to have people be aware that when they buy milk and dairy products, we'll appreciate this now. Like, yeah, make the point, Jack, make the connection. Come on, buddy. Don't be so nice. When people buy milk and dairy products, they're perpetuating what you're seeing on screen here, the treatment of these beautiful sentient pasture puppies like objects, just worthless and unfeeling. It's horrific.
Yeah. Leah and I were
Happy
actually,
New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. Whee!
I can't believe we still have some people watching after all of this.
And as well, actually, Nick is, he wrote, we've been conditioned to not be empathetic to cattle, which is exactly right. We're all trained to be disconnected from where our food comes from.
See the shot right there? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I'm watching. Go.
The wolf bear shot. I
Yep.
specifically included that so that because of what
That shot right there, by the way, look at what that is just, God, that's so amazing. It's
and
beautiful.
it went really well with the music at that point too.
Yeah.
I want to turn off this podcast and listen to The Wall now.
Well, not yet, buddy, but people do it afterwards. But
That is a winter album.
This is a drone. We could do a podcast just on the making of this film. This is a drone, right? But it's rock solid. How is that, or stabilized?
I'm really talented.
I'm
I'm a really good drone pilot. No,
there you go.
the drones handle that for you. As long as you don't do something stupid, they're pretty good.
Or if it's not in heavy wind, right? Then it can't hold this steady.
Correct.
Look at this. Actually, let's just enjoy this for a moment. If people can see this. I really feel like one of the idiot sweater boys on TV gushing about a film because they don't know how to make one.
Well, I'll at least read comments.
Watch this. You're overlaying and then reversed, sped up a little bit. It's just, I'm a film fan, man. I grew up watching film. I'm like, oh my god, I just came all over your film. That's so well done.
Oh my god, Jack!
I know.
Look at that beautiful rangeland. Thank God. Thank God we have the ranchers out there keeping that nice and beautiful for us.
These are stewards of. And by the way, folks,
that's McClure. That's McClure's never-ending expanse of what does he got? How much freaking land does he have for $3,000?
How many thousands of acres? Yeah, I don't know, but they're all. I mean, that's the thing. It just, again, for context here, for explanation, all the ranches at Point Reyes Seashore are there and don't want to leave, despite being paid to leave decades ago because they got a really cheap land deal from the government at taxpayer expense. They're being subsidized. They get 1,000 acres, let's say, with 5,000 acres of interior, or $8,000 worth, 8,000 square feet of interior space in these big buildings and houses, and they're charged like $3,500 a month. In one case, specifically $3,500 a month, which is what you pay for a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. So that's why we want to leave.
Nick, I think you're correct. I think I started with Comfortably Numb and then continued onward. Jack, I remember because I grew up in cattle country. I mean, what does that even mean? We've turned like the entire United States into cattle country, but pretty much the only thing surrounding me in the Midwest were either feedlots or crops. And I remember adults stating to me, beef cow, milk cow. And as a child, it told me, oh, this one produces milk and this one produces meat. You know, they were objectified. But it also helped remove the idea from my head that this is a pregnant mother and we're taking what she feeds her baby. You know, a baby should be nursing and we're taking that from her. It helped me never think about that because in my mind, dairy cows just produce milk. That's what they do. They grow up and they produce milk their whole lives, and we just come and take some of it for our own enjoyment, which is not at all what happens.
We take all of it. We take all of it to make a profit. Yeah.
There's some more of Lovely McClure Ranch.
Look at the God, I mean, there's so much to see in just that frame too. Look at the land. You know, it's just beaten down by too many cows. And of course, it's not the cows' fault. The cows are victimized animals, but the land is beaten down in an extractive industry. I'm always kind of aware that I want each of our episodes. And there you go, Dairy of the Year, the best of the best, folks.
Look at that pan after Dairy of the Year. Thistles and manure, people.
That's a Point Reyes National Seashore, folks, a national park unit, which is supposed to be where wild animals run free. And instead, the elk have been fenced for 46 years in that place, ever since being reintroduced, so that humans can...
Look at that grass. Look at that grass.
Look at that wonderful grass. Yeah, which is to say there is none, folks, in case you're not watching. We're showing some film clips from Skyler's...
That's a marriage of nature. That's a marriage of nature and agriculture right there, Jack.
Sarcasm is thicker than butter, my friend.
I'm using their words.
Yeah. Stewards of the land that I call sewers on the land are
nice
dairy ranches.
You know what? I'm for those of you watching, if you'd like to type in any suggestions, anything that you think we should include on our year-end rundown, go ahead and type those in. We'll try to include them.
You know, so
go ahead. What's number one on your list?
Well, for me, just since we're in the Point Reyes issue, you know, say what you want. Right now, at the 2 mile long, let's call it 2 mile long, I already debate that length, but 2 mile long elk fence has a 1/8 mile long opening cut in it by the Park Service because of a big group of us environmental activists banging away on this issue, including your filming out there showing like that there's farming, you know, destroying wildlife and destroying the land.
Is that Auschwitz?
It's Cowschwitz. I'm Jewish. You be careful with that word, buddy. Don't you dare call this an animal holocaust, even though it is. Whoops, sorry, don't say that.
No, I have a Jewish person on here now. Now I have you to allow me to say things, right?
That's right. I'll provide the goy cover. So anyway, the fence is down or at least the fence is open now, and elk inside the reserve, the largest of 3 herds of the park, can wander south and know a little bit of freedom inside a national park where everybody agrees. Hunters agree, yeah, wild animals should roam free in a national park and be free of, you know, harassment and hunting, at least in a national park. And that took activism to make happen. That happened in 2024, the year that in many ways I do want to forget, of course. So take that as one.
Okay. And I'll just add my darkness to the end of that.
I would be disappointed if you didn't.
Wandering through that opening onto the land of the people who desperately want to get rid of those elk. Have fun, elk.
Meaning they're going onto farmland, pasture land now, where they're susceptible to hazing and harassment by the farmers who don't want them there. Dear old Albert Strauss, sweet guy, looks and feels like me, I guess, in many ways. 3rd generation dairy farmer. He's kind of a self-appointed advocate for the dairies at Point Reyes because he pulls his milk from 2 of them, and he's on the
that's Kivo's land right there. Oh, and now here's sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. letting
No,
people. I just in case anyone's actually watching this, I want you to
yeah,
know whose devastation and crap this is. And this
that's
is
Kehoe.
Mr.
That's Kehoe,
Kehoe
isn't it? Yep.
feeding the birds.
Which is J Ranch, which is on the way to the elk reserve. It's the ranch on the west side that's contiguous.
You're looking at lease violations right now, ladies and gentlemen. They are not supposed to be contributing to the raven and starling population through just dumping their food openly on the ground. And here's about the most mother and babyish moment you'll ever see out there. And they are standing in shit. And this is just a little bit before that baby will be taken from that mother. Another dairy of the year, celebrating these wonderful people destroying the land and abusing animals. Christians, I'm sure they're all in church right now.
Leah's all fired up, and I am so glad you're openly exposing the dairy industry and people's consumption of animal products as the whole cause of this point raised elk issue, environmental destruction everywhere.
Yeah,
Leah, God bless her.
I had my fill of people praying to Jesus before cutting into tortured animals this holiday.
Well, you know, the thing is, eating animals and abusing animals, which goes on behind the scenes out of sight, because otherwise people wouldn't do it, that's the norm. We're the 1%, 2%, 3% freaks who don't want to do it. And I do remain optimistic that it's just a matter of educating people, and then people have to choose to break habits. But that's how it works. Yeah, and it's funny. Leah just joined in. You're talking about the brilliant video I sent to Jack. Yeah, I credited you right away, Leah. Don't you worry. She's a fiery activist who has recently become the In Defense of Animals farmed animal campaigner. But her fire will not be contained by any one organization. So she's constantly on my ass. Oopsie, pushing me to say things more directly, I suppose, more fervently. And I sometimes we clash, but generally she's right. Anyway, so that was one thing. The fence came down. And I'm actually optimistic that in 2025, despite a new administration that's going to be cattle friendly, that actually I'm still optimistic. You'll laugh at this, Skyler, that a deal will be cut in another lawsuit that's going on. There's been 2 lawsuits active for about 3 years. And the second lawsuit, which I call the 3 Orgs lawsuit, Resource Renewal Institute, Western Watersheds Project, Center for Biological Diversity, will actually sign a deal in the next month, maybe even before. I mean, I know there's a push on just watching some hearings that both sides, including the ranchers, want to take their second payment of millions of dollars that they don't deserve, but take that money and run and not wait for the Trump administration to do whatever they might do in favor of them. And of course, once they sign that deal, then they have to actually move the cows out and there's the delays and all that. But if that happens, that's another historic reason for a February 23rd big celebration party for all the many activists who actually got a huge amount accomplished. Well, culminating in this year, or I guess it'll be 2025 in a month.
It's such a favor to them because it's a dying industry and it's been dying for a long time. In fact, if you go back to the, what's that called? The bit that was commissioned by the Park Service to look back at the history of Point Reyes National Seashore. When Point Reyes National Seashore was being purchased by the government, even then, the once booming dairy industry was already on the decline and people were already selling. And then here comes this payment that allowed them to become rich and then not leave and then get even more government help. The dairy industry is such a suck on our economy. People just have no idea. I mean, the only way that thing survives at all is through the government basically paying them to do what they're doing, because on their own, these industries couldn't survive at all. And so we would come to present day. It's like they should be happy as hell that there's an opportunity to escape out from under an industry that was never viable. Never once was it viable.
Less and less so now is, I mean, people are kind of getting the word, the general consumer, that you don't need dairy to be healthy. I was lied to in the 1960s as a kid. That's where I get my vitamin A and D, and now there's talk of protein, and you don't need milk at all for that. I mean, it's just a health issue, apart from the ethics and the environmental devastation of the dairy industry. You don't need to eat the stuff. We're the only species that drinks the milk of another mammal and the only one that drinks it beyond infancy. It's just
I want to
absurd. It shows how powerful conditioning is that we think it's the normal thing to do.
I want to ask our viewers the conversation. If you believe in the Trinity, apparently God could be talking to Jesus before he was ever even sent to Earth. But however you want this conversation to go down, during the creation process, what is God thinking? What is God saying to himself? Just for kicks, I think I'll create mankind without the ability to get calcium in any way other than to steal it from the mothers of other species. The only one on the planet that I'm going to do that with. But, let's just mix things up a little bit. That'll be fun.
So, risking being sacrilegious, or just being sacrilegious, as I will now, I saw the movie Christspiracy by the part of the team that made Cowspiracy, which was a very effective documentary for me, teaching me how we treat animals and the massive environmental effect of it. Christspiracy is a documentary film released about a year ago, getting into the story of Christ and what's a spiritual way to kill an animal and all that. And it's definitely worth seeing. But as you speak, I'm thinking of, like, I'm so not religious, and I think these are wonderful stories which can have lessons and of course can be horribly abused, but like kind of arguing with people about Jesus or God and what he, the old white man in the sky intended. It's all just, how shall I say this? It's just silly. It's all seems so silly.
And for perspective, people should know that I was raised Christian and Christian most of my life, and not a Donald Trump Christian. I can actually quote the Bible and tell you my favorite books, my favorite passages, even though he will say it's his favorite book and not be able to answer one simple question of that sort, while blasphemously actually selling the word of God to profit himself. Trump Christians might be the number one reason that I'm not a Christian anymore. Humans always screw up religion, but this is a new level. Just like the most vile, disgusting people out there that then turn to the Bible and say, yes, this is what we believe in.
I bought a bumper sticker 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I had it on my fridge. I didn't have the courage to put it on my car, and it said, Jesus, protect me from your followers.
I don't want to make this a Christian bashing, because I understand the attachment. I understand the attachment and why it makes you feel good, but
I'm not bashing Christ, and I'm not bashing Christianity. I'm borrowing how it can often be abused and contorted, because people do that, and I think a good Christian would acknowledge that. Jimmy Carter, God bless him, just died a couple days ago, was a really good Christian man. I mean, he inspired me.
He actually behaved like one.
Can be great people. What's that?
You could actually look at him and buy that he's a Christian.
Yeah, well, by his actions, not just words, by his actions. Amazing.
Correct.
Yeah, he's the very first. How's this, kids? Gather around your grandpa Jack. He's the first president I could ever vote for, and of course did vote for, way back when.
Well, I'll say something nice from the Bible, that God is love, and if you have love in your heart, you will do kind things and do what Jesus wanted us to do, behave as Jesus did. And there's no love involved in the dairy industry. Like, to pretend that you have love in your heart and then choose to do this for a living, I actually think it's psychopathic. It's psychopathic behavior. These people that go out there and pose for a photo with a calf that was stolen from the mother, knowing that after the photo is done being taken, it's being hauled out onto a veal truck to be walked down a line to its death, so that people can have a veal shank on Christmas.
Marty Knudsen wrote, I had a Christian tell me the other day that they were praying for California to fall into the ocean. And I would say, obviously, that's not a very Christian idea. It's all too human. And of course, Christians and non-Christians and the left and the right can all be mean-spirited and say nasty stuff like that. But I think all could agree that's not actually a Christian sentiment, to wish ill on other people. Whom would Jesus want to fall into the sea?
Well, it's confusing because then you have to pick. You can pick and choose if you're a Old Testament or New Testament, because a lot of the Old Testament is vengeance.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from religion, which could
Yay!
be a separate show. So another thing that's going to happen is this year, another good thing. I've been working with Richard Charter, the Ocean Foundation, and another group of environmental activists, trying to prevent a extermination helicopter drop of rodenticide onto a national marine sanctuary, the Farallon Islands, which is a small island chain 25 miles directly out to sea west of San Francisco. And this is because mice that were introduced there by humans 150 years ago have, there's a large population of mice, thousands of them on these islands, and they feed the gulls. In effect, they are food for gulls, and they eat plants. They're part of the ecosystem now. They're integrated as animals do, and nature is always adapting and changing. And
So you're saying they're naturalized?
And the budget has, thank you, naturalized, very good word. They're part of the ecosystem now. They're not doing any harm. But humans want to go in there, as this is all driven by the ideology of invasion biology, and want to spend millions of dollars using helicopters dropping buckets and buckets of thousands of poison pellets on them, which of course would devastate other animals as well. But anyway, that's not going to happen currently because of budget cuts. So I'm usually for environmental programs run by the government, but so many of them have been corrupted by big business to become killing campaigns called restorations, that a lot of that stuff will be cut. So when government is crippled, environmental programs are crippled because some of them have been so corrupted by government, the net result is actually good. There'll be less killing this year if some programs are cut. Crazy, right?
That is crazy.
Thank you, Skyler, for saying the truth about the evil of the dairy industry, says your fan, Leah. Your fellow, another fan, I should say.
So far on your list, it's the opening of the elk fence, and number 2 is the not dropping of the rodent side. Tons of it, if I recall correctly. I've spent a lot of time at the Farallons, and it makes me cringe to think about this plan. I said it before, it just blows my mind that in 2020, well, let's just call it 2025 now, the most intelligent species can't come up with something better than that. And to your point, we're good at the destroying part. What's part 2 of your plan? How do you follow that up? Something, because as you alluded, this is now a naturalized system, whether you think it should be taking place or not. And now there's going to be this mass murder of something, and other things are going to now suffer consequences from that removal, and other things are going to suffer the consequences of that removal. How are they going to counteract all the negative effects of their initial destruction? And from my experience looking into these things, goat grazing being number 1 on my list at the moment, no one looks into part 2.
Yeah. Well, they might throw out there and say, well, nature will restore itself, but first we're gonna kill the crap out of it. First, we're gonna kill our way back to a healthy ecosystem, which is, destroying the village in order to save it. It's one of those, the same mentality. This is the management stuff I rail about every year. Anyway, more good stuff, right? You wanted more good things that have happened this year?
Yeah.
So this will take us down the political road. I don't need to go too far down it, but ever since I came of age politically in the 1980s with Newt Gingrich and the Tea Party kind of wanting to blow things up, the Tea Party, I guess, in a way. I mean, the original Tea Party, Boston Tea Party. I'll call them the Retrumplican Party right now, has finally done it. They did it. They were chasing the bus of democracy and chasing the bus of government, and they caught it. And they drove it off the side of the road and they firebombed it. They got it. They got all all 3 branches of government under their control, and their hero at the helm. And now it's up to them to drive the bus and run the government and deliver people their Social Security checks and protect the country and do things. And we're going to see that firebombing a bus is very different from driving a bus. and they got no one to blame now. And they'll try, of course. The Fox News machine will blame, I guess, Nancy Pelosi and Jack for whatever bad might happen. But when things go to ship, which they will, it'll be their responsibility because they got control of the bus now. So it's not anything I wanted to see happen, but boy, it's going to be a weird ride.
The supporters of that party are so short-sighted that the only thing that they will talk about is that their gas prices are lower for a little bit, which is going to come at an incredible cost to what little areas we still have preserved. I mean, that, you talk about government shutdowns of certain things. Well, that's also going to be a government shutdown of protection agencies. And look, if Trump's goal is to increase domestic output of something that's already forcing us to do crazy shit like frack, I mean, seeking the tiniest bits of gas in between ancient rock layers and poisoning the water supply in the community as a consequence, and we're going to somehow increase the product, they're going to go into some beautiful places. National parks are, I hope, it would be nice to believe that what you're saying is going to be good, but I'm guessing that national parks are going to be opened up to oil.
Oh, interesting. That's congratulations. That is a dark place. I think national parks won't be defiled, but that's easy to say. And
they're being defiled now.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Did you watch the footage of Point Reyes that was just on the screen?
Well, okay, big boy. This is so funny. This is the half empty, half full. Like, look, it's half empty. No, it's half full. Look, it's half empty. No, it's half full. We activists, citizens got involved. Shows the power of activism. I put a positive spin on that, and mainly, I choose to be optimistic. God knows there's enough dark out there, but I don't like the way that feels, and then I don't take action, and then things get even worse, and I feel even worse. So I it's a choice, and I'm not saying anybody else should take it, but that's what I do. Just personally, I'm revealing why I choose to be an optimist. It feels better, and then I can do something. I can get up in the morning, I can get out of bed. Derek asks a good question. Do you guys think the true motivation behind projects like the Faralline's poisoning drop is just to move money into the pockets of the pesticide companies? So,
horrifyingly enough, I do believe Monsanto is the ultimate recipient in this project. Am I correct?
It's good. The poison they're going to use is brodifacoum, and that's, oh shoot, I should know that. It's not a Monsanto product. Monsanto's famous for glyphosate, for specifically the brand. I mean, they've been bought by Bayer now, and it's glyphosate is the main ingredient. That's the chemical, but it's Roundup is the brand we use, and that's got other nasty chemicals in it as well.
Roundup was the byproduct of Agent Orange.
Yes. But anyway, to get back to the Faralline's, yes, the short answer is yes. It's all driven by money from pesticide sales. But however, to be fair, of course, the reality on the ground is more complex than that. It's spreading an ideology of, it used to be a nice word, restoration. You don't plant an English lawn in California where there's not a lot of water. You put in so-called native plants that are adapted to be drought resistant and don't need much water. And those were restoration projects. Great. That term has been, in fact, you and I, Skyler, at some point do a really fascinating show where you and I have I know ultimately underneath we agree, but you use native, non-native, and weeds and noxious weeds and those terms. And I'm just so aware of language, and I'm so wary of those words because that's how the abuse happens, is when we start speaking the language of the pesticide companies. They're the one that started saying noxious weeds, which is just a made up term. It's like really, really bad weeds. Be scared of them. And when you're scared, then you got to kill them. And of course, we would agree on where things come from, and the Laura Cunningham teachings that both of us received, you more than me, about the value of, long-rooted grasses that have been here for thousands of years and sequester more carbon and are very different from the European grasses brought in by cattle out at Point Reyes, where we've seen it. But Skyler, Derek, the thing is, the way it gets complicated is they spread an ideology of kill the invader, kill the foreigner, kill. Don't take an actually scientific, objective, double-blind experiment of the effect of this plant and that plant in a landscape, whether or not you kill it anyway. But it's just immediately, it's from somewhere else, kill it.
All
and
right,
that
I
is an
can
ideology called invasion biology, and then you sell chemicals to kill the bad invaders, the foreigners.
I can go even darker because it's not even the word noxious that's as important there. It's the word weed
Yep.
because it depends on who is saying the word weed, just like it depends on the people using the word pest. You turn anything that you've decided you don't want to be there into a pest. Just like
Exactly.
anything that you don't want to be there is a weed. Like farmers and ranchers will call native plants the weeds and the invasive species. And unfortunately, Audubon Society uh, is part of that problem. And if animals like, let's say, a badger, here's an extreme example because not very many people talk trash about owls, but if you have a burrowing owl and somebody wants to say, oh, cattle are breaking their ankles on burrowing owl dens, then the owl is a pest.
Burrowing owl
You
is
see
a
how
wet.
it works?
Burrowing owls, just to clarify that for non-Westerners here, those are owls that dig holes in the ground so they can be in pastures where cows, like gopher holes in the West, can step into and break a leg, right? Break an ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
I
And
mean, a lot of animals do that. You know, it's Earth. we're supposed to be using it for our homes,
right.
not
So
pouring
you bring
concrete
in
over
so
it.
you bring in European cattle and breed them, and they're actually kind of, in my mind, the ultimate, other than humans, obviously, but cows imported from Europe are the ultimate so-called invasive species. And then, as we see at Point Reyes, then they demonize coyotes. There are no wolves. There's maybe one black bear out there, but basically no predators. So they complain about the native elk, meaning they were there for thousands and thousands of years, and then almost completely wiped off the face of the earth, reintroduced into Point Reyes, into a place they'd been for thousands of years. And ranchers consider elk the enemy. How dare they eat the grass of our cows?
I have a question for the viewers. If anyone happens to have any information about this, because I've been searching for any studies about the negative effects of ground squirrels on deer, because a lot of people get mad at ground squirrels or gophers because of their gardens or because of their precious, absolutely worthless, functionless lawns that they slave away to maintain for no good reason, except that that's what humans do: is have lawns and waste precious commodity water on it. Uh,
English habit, right?
yeah. Anyway, this war on things that dig under the ground, etc., and cattle breaking their legs. Because as a child, I started actually have a video on my ecology channel talking about this. You're like, oh, the farmer or whoever's house you're at. Hey, you kids, you go in the back and take the rifles, and you see how many ground squirrels you can shoot. This is how it was when I grew up. It's like, give the kids some guns, go make use of yourselves by killing wildlife.
I,
And I'm
I
talking
did.
about 12 years old with a fucking rifle, man.
I had a BB gun and then a pellet gun and then a 22, and I would go out and want to use it, and some plinking, meaning shooting cans and bottles, but also aiming at squirrels and birds and frogs and ponds. I mean, it's so weird that I could have
Well,
done that, and it's
yeah.
just because my father wasn't around saying, "Hey, don't do this thing." And he was an animal lover; he wasn't shooting them, but it's what boys, I think, a lot of boys do. I think it's natural behavior.
We'll get to that. But let me. I
Another
didn't even
show.
say my question yet.
Yeah.
So, have any wildlife ecologists done studies that looked at how many legs of deer or elk were broken due to the existence of ground squirrels or prairie hogs, etc.? I don't think it was a problem because they lived together. If it was a problem, they wouldn't have evolved together. So once again, we've introduced an animal that doesn't belong, and there are consequences because this lumbering beast just walks into the holes of animals that naturally live there. And now the animals that were doing what they were supposed to be doing are pests to make way for the livestock. So, anyway, I'd really like to know if, in fact, they're. See, I don't even think anybody looks into something like this. Sadly enough, with all the scientists out there, has anyone even looked into whether or not that was ever an actual problem between native wildlife? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, and I did search, I couldn't find it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it wasn't a problem.
I totally agree. I mean, it's all just what is it called when you just make stuff up? Not empirical. There's another word I'm blanking on because it's too early in the morning. Yeah, of course. It's just throwing stuff out there. It's like saying Mr. Strauss of the wonderful Strauss Dairy Products, whom you should not be buying, says if we shut down the ranch at Point Reyes, it's going to put dairy out of business in Marin. Like, there's so many false assumptions in there that, I mean, tourism, for one, brings in much more money to the economy than does the dairy industry in Marin. And the dairy industry in Marin is already, crippled and dying, and as it should, and being propped up by government subsidies, which people don't know about. And by the way, I just wanted to, because Lee is here, so her presence is always watching over me. Here's what you can do, listener. Don't buy dairy products. Don't buy dairy products.
Are you sure you don't want to just pick and choose? Like, don't buy Strauss and don't buy Clover?
All of them, Skyler. Thanks for asking. There are no humane dairy products. There are no humane animal products. It's all more advertising lies. Nick said
there's no good version of evil.
No, there's no good version of evil. But again, advertising is so. I used to work in the industry, and if you get people to speak your words, I always mention George Orwell, my favorite author on the topic. I've got a plane trip coming up soon, and I didn't have a copy handy. I got another copy, a used copy, of course, from a used bookstore, of 1984, about newspeak and doublespeak and doublethink, and we can. I watched this amazing anonymous for the voiceless activist, at least part-time, named Natasha in Australia, and she's on the street in London showing animal footage of what goes on in factories that people don't want to see, and I just find it psychologically fascinating. And again, I grew up a meat eater, and I'm an animal lover who is eating animals, because no one ever pushed it in my face and said, "Do you know what you're doing?" Wow, it's a complete contradiction. And it's just fascinating where people say, "I don't want to watch that." Oh, and she would say very patiently, "Oh, it's upsetting, right? Yo, that's terrible." And saying, "Do you eat meat?" Yes. So I'm looking at something that I'm responsible for because I buy meat and dairy, but I don't want to know about it. And just, that's the thing that we activists want to keep bringing up. Bringing up.
We'll do a show someday about our transition periods, comparing them. Let me say.
Wait a second. Say that again, Skyler.
I think someday we should do an episode where we reflect back on our transition periods.
How about January 7th? How does that work for you?
Okay.
Wow, there you go, folks. He said it.
There's going to be more Point Reyes stuff to talk about. I can tell you right now. But
always. Anyway, so that's we're back in a week. We're back on Tuesdays, January 7th. Yay.
So Nick Cedar, welcome to being a viewer on my dark channel. I appreciate your comment, but I'm going to go one step further. Give me an example of when humans aren't an invasive species, as you see it.
So Nick wrote, humans can be an invasive species. So Skyler's upping the ante and raising you one, Nick. Nick is an elktivist, by the way.
And then, of course, we're going to have to define invasive. Right?
Yeah, very good. And there is no scientific definition, by the way, of invasive. That's the other thing to know about the whole.
Not?
Oh, God, no. I mean, I've got a shelf full of books right over there, all about the topic. Is how I cut my teeth in this stuff and really learn from a lot of botanists and biologists and activists and environmental writers. And they have some kind of working definitions, but they're loosey-goosey. I mean, why is it that cows are not considered invasive?
Oh, the only reason is that one's obvious.
Go ahead. What's the answer?
It's a commodity.
Meaning for profit.
Right.
So a species can be invasive as long as we don't profit from it. So, I mean.
Correct.
I understand the logic of that, but that's not scientific. That's just arbitrary.
The way that Melanie Gunn of the Point Reyes National Park Service is concerned that the elk might someday reach the population levels of the not invasive commodity cattle.
Poor Melanie Gunn, Skyler. She's just doing her job. She can hear. Say this, Melanie, or be fired. So she repeats the party line, and now they're on our side. They're actually.
You want me to sympathize with the most intelligent species, the superior species that makes a living repeating what that person is told, which, in fact, by repeating, is in fact lying to the public. I'm not sure how you can hold a federal position and not get in trouble for lying to the public, but that's what the Point Reyes National Park Service does. Yes,
What did
I
you,
said it. Sue me. You can't because I'm telling the truth and I have all the documentation. The people at Point Reyes National Park need to go and they need to suffer consequences for what they've done, not be given ways out.
quote, I was being gentle, says Nick Cedar in response to the invasive
So was I.
human. Right. That was just a taste of Skyler's
But
righteous.
it was also, I wasn't just being a smartass. It's an interesting topic. I'd like to know when humans look at their behavior and say, see, this one here is fine, but this one over here isn't fine.
Yeah. It's a wonderful another topic. As someone might put it, if you're a real activist, you say don't sympathize with liars. And the question is, oh, I'm sorry, Leah just said that. So the question is, how much slack do you cut somebody, some or none, or somewhere in between, for repeating the party line? And for me, I guess the answer it comes to me as I say that or ask it is, well, it depends on how big the line. It depends the result. If you really want to hold people to account, hold their feet to the fire, as it were. I mean, that's your choice, and I understand it. But that's not many people can pass that test to always tell the truth and never misrepresent or lie. That's
How
tough.
long is your list of things to go through today? Because it's about 10 a.m.
We got 3 minutes left on this show. Yeah. So, well, it's not just to do the New Year's Eve morning.
I'd like to give some love to our viewers, people that actually tuned in on New Year's Eve. Does anyone want to call in? I'll put the call in link up. Or if you don't want to call in, if you don't want your voice to be heard or whatever, and you'd like us to answer a question, go ahead and type it in.
Excellent.
It's my livelihood, though, said the slave owner. Leah, you got to be on here more often.
She's too busy. She doesn't have time to be on here. Get on here, Leah. Gosh darn it. Maybe next we can get you on the 7th. Make a commitment. Plan for it.
Got to make a living. You got to make a living, said the superior species. I'm helpless. Got no choice. I'm just a superior species, and I got to make a living no matter how shitty I do it.
So Derek says do a 90-minute show. Skyler and I could do a 3-hour show. It's not, the thing is getting people to watch the thing, Derek. So I think less is more. Leave them begging for more is what I was taught by my photographer father about slideshows. You show a tray and a half, and they're like, oh, those were great, Alfred, my father. Show some more pictures. And go, no, that's it. And I've been in slideshows where somebody shows, well, I'm dating myself. What is a tray? What does that even mean? Oh, slides. What are slides? 3 trays of slides, and people are like, okay, enough. It's too much. Don't overstay your welcome. Keep it to 60 minutes and keep it lively, and then on to the next show, and tune in next Tuesday, folks. We'll be back.
We can give them a couple of extra minutes for New Year's, right? Just a couple. I mean,
okay. Well, I certainly think your idea to do call-ins is great. So
if nobody calls in, or if through our judgment of your questions they aren't worthy of us staying on.
Yeah, and also, here's a question: if anybody out there knows how to up listenership for a podcast, I'm suspecting that's a Google search, and then you find people you hire to spread the word. I'd love to be on next Monday to talk about our V-word journey. Well, it's next Tuesday. Can you do next Tuesday. Good. Yes. Excellent. Okay. You're booked. The talent is booked. We have a commitment.
Cool.
Excellent.
Leah, I don't know when you converted. What age were you? I'm asking a woman to reveal her age.
No, just the age of conversion. And we don't mean Christianity, but we're talking about the not eating animals. Forget the V word, just not eating animals, realizing you don't want to be responsible for animal cruelty.
But if you're talking, let's say we don't know who Leah is, and Leah is a 60-year-old woman. If she converted at 50, then she's admitting that she's at least 50, right?
Well, a lesson I learned, my friend, and this is a different topic, is just if you think you have an idea of a woman's age, just guess 15 years younger, and then you'll survive.
Ooh, and then you still get it wrong.
It's the from the straight man's perspective, like, oh, Jack, do these jeans make my ass look fat? Answer: no, honey, you look gorgeous. No, honey, it doesn't matter what you see. If you're looking at the side of a barn, even if my ass is 2 barns, yeah, exactly. You can't even say. You see how tense that is. Just
see now, are you being inappropriate, or is the fact that you're speaking openly because men and women are equal actually make you more progressive
Well,
you don't have.
we're not really equal. Women are still judged by their appearance much more than men. It's horribly unequal. Men are still objectifiers more than not, and women are usually the objects. And to everybody's detriment, by the way. You know, I was trained to objectify women and still trying to undo that training.
Hmm.
And of course, it's a part of it that's natural. Is, you know, we are animals in a good way, and look at other people and look for possible mates and spreading our seed and all that fun stuff. But it's another topic for another day's conversation. 12 years ago is Leah's answer. 12 years ago, so somewhere around 2012, that would be cool. When for you, by the way, Skyler? What year? Do you know?
The end of 2017.
Oh wow! Oh, interesting. I somehow just I assumed you would have. Well, you're younger than me anyway. For me, I was 50 years eating all about it. Didn't want to know about it. Didn't want to know about it. And it was 2014, seeing the movie Cowspiracy, that was the final straw that broke my back and said, "Uh-oh, I'm wrong. I didn't know. I'm ashamed, and I have to break these habits." And it wasn't easy. Anyway, that's a teaser of next week's show. It's an interesting topic. Anyway, because we're all raised in a culture where eating animals,
I bet a lot of people are going to be able to relate to what I did, which was try to find an excuse to keep a couple of things, such as some people go vegetarian and keep maybe dairy, or maybe keep one part of dairy. And I visited some small local farms to see, hey, you know, I'll go see for myself. Maybe it's possible to produce some cheese so that we can still have some wine and cheese every now and then. Keep one little guilty pleasure. And no.
Which did you visit? Which local farm or cheesemaker did you visit?
Well, I mean, obviously Point Reyes didn't help any. But there was one in damn it. It's going down Highway 1 on your way to Santa Cruz, and it's right across from a state park on the coast, and it's a goat cheese place. And God.
It's all right. While that comes into your brain, guess which I did the same thing you just described. Like, well, let me go find the best of the best. Small, local, organic certified, regenerative. I didn't even know what the word regenerative meant in 2014, but I was in Marin County at the time, and let me find a really good small company that does this stuff and see if it's better and how they treat their animals. And I went to a town called Marshall on Tamales Bay, across from the seashore. Guess who owned that dairy, Skyler?
Tell me.
I'll give you a hint. At the end of our lovely tour of his 200-acre farm with about 200 head of cattle, which is very few cows, dairy cows, he, the owner of the place, was there himself, and he gave us samples of his wonderful, free, famous ice cream to try. Can you guess who that would be?
Strauss.
Albert Strauss himself. Yeah, nice guy. Third generation. Mother was a farmer, grandfather farmer, and that's a story. That is a story. But I went to Strauss Organic Creamery, was impressed by it, but also came away saying, I can't quite reconcile still eating this stuff because of what I saw. Oh, Connie asked, can you give some info on February 23rd? I don't want to jump the gun on that, Connie. Just save the date because I haven't booked it. Once it's booked, then I feel more comfortable. Just a little bit of activist paranoia. I want to make sure I have everything locked down before I can tell more. But let's just say it's a Sunday, February 23rd. Oh, to heck with you, Leah. You and I are going to have a talk next Tuesday on air. Nice guy. Don't you insult me with that BS. So, Connie, 1 to 4 p.m., middle of the day, again in Marin County, February 23rd is Sunday. And details will come sooner than this time's details.
So you actually outgrew your other venue, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, a few reasons. But yeah, there's an interest. I mean, it's a big deal. A lot of activists has worked, 100 of us in different ways at least. And if we want to come to a party and bring someone to actually celebrate the rare win in an environmental or animal rights movement, I don't want to have to tell people you can't come, or we're overcrowded, or worried about fire code and all that stuff. I want a big enough venue.
Marshall. Oh yeah, I've been to Marshall. Of course, because I drive up the east side looking into Point Reyes and getting shots of it that way. But also, you drive along that highway and you realize that's all malt land and ranch land, and it all looks like trash too. So it's amazing. It's amazing that people think we need to keep Point Reyes when everything outside of Point Reyes is more of Point Reyes, which is a safe dairy.
And that's the Highway 1 north of San Francisco by whatever, 40, 50 miles. And it's driving up the coast of Tomales Bay, which parallels the very tip of Point Reyes Seashore where the elk reserve is.
Like
and
if you're trying to get to Dillon Beach.
Right, to get to Dillon Beach. And that's the Malt is the Marin Agricultural Land Trust, which is a trade group basically of people who, that's a whole nother show, arguably did some good work in on private land, not selling to developers. But now that story, 50 years later, has changed. And the argument is no longer, well, it's either going to be condominiums or cows. Or if it's not cows, it's going to be condominiums. There's a third option, which is let it be wild land again. A national park, a national park, a state park, a county park, open space, they call it in Marin, which is kind of a slippery word right there because that means, oh, it's cattle land, that's open space. No, that's still devastated space. And all of Marshall, that area you were talking about, I'm sure, Skyler, you could go on about how devastated that land is too.
Yeah, I'll make another Point Reyes video that's just me filming going by. It's crap. And the number of malt signs protected forever next to nothing but just devastated land is really something else. Oh, by the way, it was Pescadero was the place down south.
Oh, I know where that is. Pescadero Beach. I found a great tree there once to photograph my tree project. Yeah. So protected forever is the clever advertising slogan for malt, which really you just corrected it. It should be they have a land trust, and Nick throws in it's a land distrust. That's great. And malt is decimated forever. As long as you're running cattle out there, and people object to the word cattle as like an ownership thing. I use them interchangeably because that's the popular word, but sure. Cows for me are the sweet creatures that we abuse. Cattle for me is the industry where we abuse cows and destroy the land. That's how I distinguish those two terms. Very, very aware of language and love to talk about language. And in fact, I use language when I do. It's 10:08, Mr. Skyler. How long are you and I going to go on? When is enough?
I was just, as long as we're talking about malt, a mutual friend of ours, I won't say her name in case she doesn't want to be named, but we had a very long talk. She lives in Inverness, right there in Point Reyes. And she talked about how she came from the down south, the South Bay, the peninsula, and land trusts down there, or conservation easements, actually meant that the process involved preserving the land and doing something healthy with it, and people could actually go and enjoy it, and it was more wildlife friendly, and there were walking trails and things like that. And when she moved out there, she originally supported Measure A and malt because of what it's called. They advertise it as doing exactly that, providing park space and trails and all this, an open green area. And it's a flat out lie. It's millions of dollars put into the pockets of ranchers who keep destroying land that you can't go on. And it's similar to Point Reyes. I don't know why you'd want to go on it, because it's thistles and cow patties and dirt and barbed wire. And this is what measures that say you're doing something green and environmental take money to do. It's astonishing. And I don't know how Marinites can have lived there as long as they have and never just seen what they're looking at.
Well, it's called conditioning. You know, I came out here from the east. I didn't know anything. And I said, oh, look at these beautiful rolling green hills, thinking it's like Ireland is the kind of the thing we say, at least this time of year now when there's rain. A few months of the year we get rain here in the west. And I thought, how beautiful. And no one was standing over my shoulder like you. I hadn't seen your film. You know, I wasn't going to see that film for 15 years later, until 15 years hence, saying, no, Jack, actually, this used to be coastal prairie and forest. And all those rolling green bare hills are actually deforested, decimated land destroyed by the cow or cattle industry. You need to be, it's interesting how people need to be educated because they don't know what was there before. And each generation grows up thinking, living in a dumpster is normal. And
Jack,
not that
nothing happened before the ranchers. They arrived from space. God actually set them there, and that's when history began. There weren't any native humans. There weren't any coastal Miwok people who were driven from the land or enslaved or killed because they didn't convert to Christianity. None of that happened.
Yeah, it is fascinating to hear people say, my family has worked this land for 3 generations, and I'm just going to go on here and say it's mine and ignore the fact that Native Americans lived here for thousands of years and hundreds of generations. We're just going to ignore that because I'm a cowboy, as you wisely put in your wonderful other film, which I call Cowboy.
Well, as the fakest Christian that's ever existed takes office, I guess we can end the show talking trash about Christianity again.
Oh, no. He's not Christian. Please don't. He doesn't even claim to be. I mean, that's just silliness. Please don't even go there. That's offensive to me, and I'm not Christian.
Have you seen the Trumpsters walking around with the Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president shirts?
I don't want to end it. Do we have to end on that note? Do we have to spoil what was such a good party here?
Was it?
Well, it wasn't that bad. Just
I'm ready to put on Pink Floyd The Wall and contemplate existence after this show.
I think that might not be the worst way to end this, is to show a little bit of that. Well, that's a pretty dark film, your film, but it's just so artfully done. And actually, it's a great dark film, a short film. Back to where we started from,
well,
folks. Check out Skylar's. Let's do a little plug here for you, my friend. Watching Humans on the YouTube channel of Skylar Thomas, environmental filmmaker. You're listening to him here, along with me, Jack Gescheit, with a bullshit radio voice of the treespiritproject.com, environmental activist. And Skylar and I met working on the Point Reyes issue, which augurs into every other issue on the planet about the environment. Thanks for listening, folks, and come back every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. How's that, Skylar? How do you like my advertising voice?
Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Can you even hear the Pink Floyd in the background, or?
I haven't heard it, no.
My noise canceling headphone is
You're trying to figure out how to play it while we're talking? There should be a way to do that. Is that